How's it going, and welcome to The Guitar Effect. My name's Rob. In this episode, I'm going to be responding to a comment from Sharut on the Pink Floyd Sounds on the HX Effects video, where he asked for some Pearl Jam sounds on the HX Effects. Now, I've been a massive Pearl Jam fan since the early 90s, so I'm very, very happy to oblige in this particular instance. So that's what we're going to be looking at today, Pearl Jam sounds on the HX Effects. But before we do, I'll ask you to please like and subscribe so you can be kept up to date with everything we're doing here. So I'm going to be doing separate presets for Mike, Stone and Eddie. So I've done those and I've put them in a track. Have a listen. About my philosophy about how I was going to go about this, since I'm such a huge Pearl Jam fan. I wanted to do it in the way that I thought has as much value as possible. I actually played in a Pearl Jam tribute band for a time, maybe about 7 or 8 years, and we toured around Ireland playing Pearl Jam tribute gigs, which was a really, really happy time in my music playing career. And I played a bit of Eddie stuff, a bit of Stone stuff, and a bit of Mike stuff, and we split it between myself and the other guitar player. And it was while doing that I thought the best way of doing this would be to set up separate presets for Eddie, Stone and Mike. And so that's how I've done it. So that's kind of all we really need to talk about, really. Let's get into the sounds, I guess. Okay, so I'm going to be starting off with Eddie's preset. And my signal chain is this guitar, which I'll talk about in a sec, into the HX Effects, and then I have the preamp of my Cox Studio Tone 20 amplifier in the effects loop 1 of the HX Effects, and then I have the output going into the effects return. So what that effectively means is I'm basically playing the HX Effects in the effects loop of the Cox Studio Tone 20. For Eddie's sound, Eddie plays a P90 equipped guitar predominantly. He does try other bits and pieces, but predominantly it's his black kind of sparkly finish P90 in the neck position Telecaster that I can't really tell whether he's on the P90 in front or whether he's on the mixture of both pickups, but either way he plays a P90 equipped Telecaster, and he plays it into a Tweed Twin, which is just in front of Matt's drum kit on stage when they're playing live, and it seems to have a Tweed Deluxe either side of it. What the actual routing of that is and whether anything's in stereo, I don't think so. He's a very, very, very simplistic purist guitar player. He has one sound. No matter what the situation is, he has that one sound as well. Like I remember watching him doing Betterman on Letterman once, and he still had that same guitar just by himself for the majority of it with those same amplifiers, and it sounded exactly the same as it does when he's playing with the full band, which is interesting. He doesn't use any pedals or anything that I can see, bar one, which I'll talk about in a bit, and it's just a question of how hard he hits the guitar changes the tone. I don't even think he's doing that purposely to change the tone of the instrument. It's just whatever he feels he needs to hit at that particular point in time, however hard he feels he needs to hit the guitar to get the emotional delivery he's trying to get. So, in order to emulate that in a way that I would feel comfortable playing Eddie Vedder riffs as part of a Pearl Jam band, and that's what the objective of these presets is. So, first of all, you need a P90 equipped guitar. I built this Telecaster, which I'll show you here, a while back, and it is a mahogany body, okay, it's a cheap mahogany body that I finished in cherry just on the top and left the back and sides mahogany. It has a Tokai, secondhand Tokai P90 in the bridge, and then it has a DiMarzio Chopper T because I really like Richie Kotzen sound in the bridge. And then the middle position is actually out of phase, which is really interesting. But for the purposes of this is my P90 equipped Telecaster that I'll be using, okay? Sounds like this. Right, the other thing is the Cox clean channel is a Marshall Plexi style clean channel, so it doesn't have the requisite sound to get Eddie Vedder's tone without help. So in between the preamp of the Cock and the HX effects, I have the Joyo American sound set to like a Fender Tweed amp kind of setting, and I have the mids backed off ever so slightly and everything else. The drive is very low, and it sounds like this. So here is the sound without the American sound, okay? This is just going into the front end of the Cock. Okay, if I add the American sound, it just sounds more like his sound. So that's the principle of the whole sound. I have just a regular spring reverb on. I have a noise gate I'm just going to put on. So I'll just go through the board. On the board you can see I have a noise gate, I have a 70s chorus, which I'll talk about in a sec. I have a spring reverb, I have a foot switch for the amp, which I never use. And then I have this kinky boost, which is just basically ever so slightly more of the same thing. So here it is without the boost, with the boost. Like the difference is actually, really negligible. Just gives it a tiny little bit more because his sound never really gets overdriven. Okay, and then there's the 70s chorus. So I'm gonna get really nerdy here for a sec. There is a DVD, which will tell you how long ago this is, called Imagine or Imagining Cornice, which is Pearl Jam live in Rome, I think, or maybe Milan, somewhere in Italy, from around 2008, 2009, I think. And there's this shot of Eddie playing a Les Paul by himself, and he's noodling around at the beginning of Immortality, and he has some sort of pedal on the ground that he kicks on, and it's a chorus. So here is the part he plays without the chorus. And then with the chorus. I've never heard him use any other effect at any point, excuse me, ever other than that. So what does this sound like? Okay, so here is a couple of different Eddie Vedder riffs with this rig. So without the boost on. Okay, and you can also roll the volume knob if you want to cleaner. Okay, and then for the for a more sort of percussive heavy thing, you could have Worldwide Suicide. You can notice it never actually loses its clean cut through. Key is to hit the guitar really, really, really hard for the more punky stuff. Eddie has a very rough and ready, aggressive way of playing its key to his sound. And that's kind of Eddie's tone. You don't really do anything else, you just play the requisite song as is required. It's dirtier, I think, than you might expect. And if again, I think it's best to start off with that level of slightly dirtiness on the neck pickup, and then if you want to clean it, just roll back the volume ever so slightly. And that's kind of Eddie's sound. Okay, so moving on to Stone sound. Things start to get a little bit more complex now. And I will actually say that Stone Gossard's sound, especially in latter years, I think comes across as being pretty fundamental, basic sound. And it's actually a bit of nuance to it. And as such, it is way more complicated preset than what Eddie had. I'm kind of going in increasing level of complexity. Eddie's the most basic, Stone somewhere in the middle, and then Mike has a lot going on. So Stone has for a long time been centered around Les Pauls. He seems to be predominantly playing one now that has a Bigsby on it. He plays kind of burst-looking, old-looking Les Pauls. So this is my Les Paul. It's an Orville. It's 1997, so it is now, I think, 24 years old. It's amazing. I will make a statement about this, that this is having some tuning stability issues at the moment, so I apologise for that. But it's very similar to the kind of Les Paul that he would use. It's a 59 style Les Paul, made in Japan, with regular sort of half-sounding humbucker pickups and standard volume and tone configuration, right? So it's that going into the HX effects and then using the preamp section of the Cox Studio Tone 20 in an effects loop of the HX effects. So I can put stuff before and after the preamp, and then it is going into the from the emulated speaker output at the back of my Cox Studio Tone 20 into the Focusrite Scarlett Sapphire, Focusrite Scarlett interface that I use. A couple of things about the way I have the amp set. It has a number of different little switches that you can both configure the gain structure and the tone, right? So it has a mid-shift switch, which for Eddie sound I very much had off. But I think Stone Gossard sound is all about pushed mid-range, especially since kind of Yield onwards, he's had a very pushed mid-range sound. Even when he's just playing without any effects on at all, I still feel like he has a mid turned up on his amp. Also, the Cock has 3 settings of gain, right? It has a low gain setting, a medium gain setting, and a high gain setting. So if you're on the dirty channel, for example, there's different levels of gain depending on where you set that switch. And and there's also a bright switch, and I have the bright switch in the not bright and not dull setting, so it's in the middle. And so on the back pickup, and the other thing is, for me, Stone spends nearly all of his time. I can't think of an example actually where I think Stone is overtly not playing the back pickup of a Les Paul or a Telecaster or a Strat. No matter what guitar he's playing, he always seems to have a back pickup sound. So there's my basic tone. You can hear a big reverb there, right? So you can see the HX effects on the floor here. I have the 63 spring reverb in a block that's not on one of the switches, because Stone uses an actual outboard reverb unit before he goes to his amps. So from what I can tell in general, Stone generally tends to have 2 amps. He tends to have one Tweedish or maybe AC30ish even amp that he predominantly uses for his clean sound, and then he has one sort of Marshall style high gain amp that he switches between. I'm sort of emulating that by using the clean and dirty channels of the studio tone, right? So the first thing is you need a clean sound and you need a dirty sound. Okay, and you can also see that's with the mid switch pushed on, and here it is with the mid switch off. It's not a massive difference, but it does make a difference. I have the mid push switch on the amp on to give it what I think is a more authentic Stone Gossard starting point. So, what are the effects in use? Well, you can see the main things are, there's a Vox style wah. I'll get into more about how that's used in a bit. There is a Minotaur, which is a clon centaur, which Stone has on his board. So it goes from little boost, the gain's very low on that. If I go on to the dirty sound, just gives it a little boost. And then there's also a kinky boost. So if I go on to clean sound, it's a lead boost, okay? Then the other things are, he has a Boss digital delay on his board. I'll be honest, I'm not actually sure what he's using that for, but here is the Boss digital delay style. It's just a simple digital delay. I'm not quite sure what I can necessarily hear unless he kicks it on for lead passages, which he may do. This is almost like a slapback. And then there's a harmonic flanger, which I think is like a 5-knob Ibanez flanger. And it sounds like this. Tiniest little bit of modulation. I think if I was to say he's using that for something, it would be. Or maybe. Okay, so that's the flanger. I don't think he uses that for very much other than adding a bit of modulation to some clean passages, okay? So then we get on to the core parts of his sound. So from 10, he's a lot of the time on the dirty channel, and for say a live, I'm thinking it's straight just the dirty channel on the amp with the mid push on the amp. That's actually mics a lot part of the chorus. You get the idea. I think it's just, you could put the Minotaur on for the intro. That extra mid push and the extra gain. Okay. It also could be. It would basically be the same thing for even flow. Like, I don't think he's ever got a very, very, very saturated sound. Okay, so that's the dirty sounds off 10 and obviously the clean sounds off 10. I'm just on the clean channel of the amp. I don't have any effects on. It's almost got a sort of vinyl-y quality to it, his sound. Now that on the record on 10, that is particularly affected. Like it's got a kind of a filter on it to make it just pure mid. Live, I think he may be doing that with the Minotaur. Okay, so that's basically the clean and dirty sounds off 10. I don't think things really changed very much on Versus, and when he plays the songs from Versus live, I still think it's just, I think maybe for Animal, it's just the Minotaur on with the dirty channel in the amp. I've always struggled with the riff in that song, apologies. I think the sound is correct, okay? So I'm going to focus on Do the Evolution, because I think it's a very Stone Gossard featured song, right? So the riff, that's just the dirty sound with the reverb on, obviously. Now, so if we then take the kind of bridge part of Do the Evolution, which is where Stone really kind of takes over with this riff, what we do is we kick on the Vox wah, but with the pedal in very much the heel position, and it sounds like this. Okay, and I think that's a really, really, really hugely Stone Gossardish part. If you then turn on the Minotaur and the Kinky Boost, but leave the wah on, you get... That's kind of what the solo, roughly, it's not actually the solo obviously, but that's what the solo sound that he uses for that song is. And I think a lot of the time he may reach for the wah and actually use it just in a particular setting to get a really mid-heavy cocked wah sound for a lot of his solos. I think it's quite a function of his playing. So that kind of covers everything off in terms of Stone sound. Get a Les Paul, get a mid-focused clean sound, and then a Marshall style overdrive sound, and make sure the mid's always up. Use the flanger maybe for release and garden and early kind of 10 stuff for the clean parts. Use a Klon Centaur to add drive, and then a separate boost pedal for solos. I don't know what he uses a delay for, probably just for those lead sounds. Even there, I can't hear that in Stone Gossard sound. So anyway, I have it on the board because he has a delay pedal on his board. So yeah, I'll go into Daughter now. This is my 72 thin line Telecaster, which I'll post a video about in the corner of the screen now, and a link to the video I already made. It has a Graphtec Ghost System piezo pickup fitted here in the bridge. It has an extra selector switch here, which selects between magnetic pickups, both, and just the piezo. And it has a stereo output jack that sends the acoustic down the tip side and the electric down the ring side, and I have them split off in a splitter box. And I have the acoustic going directly to the PA, and I have, or not the PA, my interface. It would go to the PA normally in this situation. And I have the electric side going directly to the rig. So I have the guitar tuned to open G, which is the tuning for daughter, and you'll recognize that from the beginning of the track, so the tuning's right. And here's the acoustic sound. And very simply, all I do is use my volume knob to turn up the electric sound. So I'll show you what that's like now. Been a while since I played that song. So you can see then that the electric sound just winds in as you need it. I would probably, in truth, have the acoustic and the electric on separate volume pedals was I to do a Pearl Jam gig, so I could do that if I was playing Stone's part. But you can see it works really well. Wind the electric out. That's how you would equip yourself for daughter. Okay, and finally we come on to Mike McCready, the most, I think, heavy lifting guitar tone in Pearl Jam's lineup. It's just got the most modulation effects, and he uses a delay fairly extensively. So the setup is slightly changed in that the bright switch is now in the bright position on my amp. Whereas for Stones, it was in the normal position. The mid shift has been put off completely. The EQ is unchanged. It's all basically straight up. And the gain has been switched from the low gain setting, which it was on for Stone sound, to the medium gain setting for Mike's sound, because I think he has a bit more of a gainy sound. In all, I'd say that in general, Mike kind of has quite of a toppy stratty sound. I'm playing a Strat for this because I think a Strat is a safe guitar in general for Mike McCready sound, but he does play Les Pauls, he plays Les Paul Juniors, he plays Les Paul Specials, he plays the occasional Gretsch, he plays Teddies and Strats, right? But I'm playing a Strat with a humbucker in the bridge, as you can see, and for that I think it can cover off everything I need to do for Mike McCready sound. So that's the lineup. It's still going into the Cock Studio 120 and using the HX effects with the preamp of the Cock in the effects loop. So the different things I'm using are, I'm using a Scream 808 here, which is just a tube screamer, a Vox wah, or sorry, a Crybaby style wah, a Rhodes speaker, a phaser, and then a Booker Brigade delay. And they're the only effects that I need. I think I need to be able to have at my feet to be able to play Mike's part in a Pearl Jam gig. So going through different sounds, just clean, dirty sounds. Here is the clean sound on the neck pickup. Just going to tune up quickly just to be sure. Okay, cool. So here is the clean sound, the neck pickup on a Strat. And then with the screamer. Which definitely does do that bluesy Stevie Ray thing that I know he's massively influenced by, but I don't think he necessarily uses that particular tone for anything in Pearl Jam. Then you have the dirty sound. On the back pickup. The gain on my amp is about on the dirty channel's halfway, and it's on a medium gain setting, so it's pretty gainy. Okay, and then you have the screamer on top of that. Then obviously you have the teardrop wah. And that's basically the lead tone, rhythm tone, and the screamer tone, and the wah tone. It does all them pretty well. And then getting into the more specific stuff then. So say for Black, it's an interesting one. He uses the out of phase position, so second position, just with the reverb on, and while Stone's playing, he plays kind of Hendrixy kind of part, so on the clean channel. Now I do have my tone up full, I could roll my tone back a bit. Or if you were going to do that live, I would probably do it with screamer on. Okay, then for Mike's part in live, you go to the other out of phase position on the back. Again, I'll probably do the screamer on, and while Stone's going, Mike's going. Okay, and then for the end, obviously, you just kick on the screamer, you kick on the wah. I would say go to the neck pickup, turn on the dirty channel on the amp. General, just a kind of bluesy wah guitar sound for a lot of the solos. So that's kind of the meat and two potatoes kind of sounds that he uses right throughout the whole time. Actually, I don't think Mike's sound has ever particularly changed, even if you go up as far as like Worldwide Suicide, just a dirty channel, the amp, back pickup. Sorry. You might kick on the screamer for the chorus. It's interesting though that I think when you compare this with Stone sound, Mike covers off way more, he's a far more distorted sound for me when I listen to the records, and live he's a far more kind of gainy sound than Stone does, and I think it works really well because Stone gets that definition with that mid-range and that lower gain tone, and then Mike kind of gives a little bit of fizz and gives the whole thing some texture. The two of them work really well together. So then the phase part of it is used for a couple of different things. So for the solo, say in Worldwide Suicide, so you just kick on the screamer and the phaser and the dirty channel on the amp. He uses phaser sometimes to give his solos a little bit of movement. And then for Given to Fly, you kick on the screamer again, I think, and the phase. So here we go. Okay, and then you put the phaser on, gets that beautiful chewiness that works really well. And that is my given to fly sound on the neck pickup of a Strat. He always plays it on at least a P90 or a P90 or a humbucker. I think he plays it on a Les Paul or a Firebird, I think, sometimes. But you can get away. I have the tone knob roll back a little bit, actually. Neck pickup tone where I had it, and I just roll a little bit of the tone knob off to try and emulate that humbucker a little bit. But I think for a live gig it would work perfectly well. So that's given to fly. So then, as an example with the rotary speaker effect, which is the last thing I'll show, he uses it in two ways. He uses it for the song Light Years off of binaural, and he uses it then as a general effect that he goes to for giving texture to solos. So I'm going to wind the treble back on my amp slightly now, because the rotary speaker is trebly. I need to address that. So we take, I have the speed connected to the expression pedal. So if we take Light Years, and then for the solo, you just kick on the dirty channel on the amp. Cool having the speed on the expression pedal. Mike just uses the different speed switches on the rotosphere that he has. So the last thing I'll go through then is the Booker Brigade delay, which is pretty important to have because it's like the rotary speaker in that he reaches for it a lot of times during the solos. It tends to bend down and change the time knob, I think, to get the repeats in time with the song he's playing for like the ends of things to kind of go. And a great example of that is Nothing As It Seems. So and then so you have that trail going off. So it does two things. It makes the general sound actually duller than it would be without it, which I think is quite interesting. And then there's that other thing of the meow, 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 which I think is really important for that song. So there you go. That's kind of all the sounds that Mike uses that I think are necessary for a gig if you're playing Pearl Jam music. So there you have it. Pearl Jam sounds on the HX effects. I'm going to share all these presets on the HX Effects forum on Line 6's website, and I'll leave a link to that in the description below. So if you want to get them, or indeed the Pink Floyd ones I'll do as well from the Pink Floyd video, feel free to head over there and grab them for your HX Effects. I hope this was of value or of interest to Pearl Jam fans out there. I've always thought that they've been one of the best guitar orientated bands that have been around since the early 90s, and they've continued to make great album after great album after great album. They've had highs and lows. Some albums have been better than others, and I'd be the first to admit that, but I'm a massive fan and I really enjoyed this process. And I think I've got a pretty deep understanding of how Stone, Eddie and Mike get their guitar sounds, what their roles, frequency-wise even, are in the band. And as you probably guessed from the presets, I have based them upon not one particular record or period, but were they out playing now? What sounds? If you were to go play in a Pearl Jam tribute band now, for example, that was going to be playing, songs from throughout their catalogue and trying to emulate what they sound like now. I think that these presets would do that really, really well. So thanks for watching. I hope it was of interest and enjoyment to you. Please like and subscribe if it was, and hit the notifications bell. And you've been watching The Guitar Effect. I've been Rob, and I will see you in another video soon. Thanks, bye bye.